Life an individual begins when a sperm from the male enters into the wall of an ovum from the female. This movement or union is called conception. The characteristics of the parents are transmitted to their children at conception. The mechanism through which such hereditary characteristics are transmitted is known as mechanism of hereditary transmission. Each fertilized egg, otherwise called zygote, contains 23 pairs of chromosomes equally released from both parents. The chromosomes contains genes. Genes are the carrier of heredity. Each gene is composed of a chemical called DNA. This DNA is actually the molecule of heredity. There are about 100,000 genes in a human cell, approximately 20,000 in each chromosome. In spite of this common carrier heredity, children born to same parents are not identical because each child inherits only half of each parent's genes. This combination occurs during the process of cell division. Only in case of identical twins, heredity remains same, as in this case, fertilized eggs split into two individuals and the 46 chromosomes in the gene cell are divided always in the same way. It is possible only in rare cases. The first symptom of pregnancy is a missed menstrual period, although this may occur due to fear of pregnancy. Nausea or morning sickness occurs after about 2 weeks of conception and lasts until the end of third month. Nausea or morning sickness occurs after about 2 weeks of conception and lasts until end of third month. Tingling sensations appears in the breast after about a month of conception, with the nipples becoming large and area around these become dark. Frequent urination, especially at night, is another indication of pregnancy. Medical examination reveals that around 6th week the lower portion of the womb becomes soft. There is swelling of the abdomen by 12th week. Various tests are conducted to ensure pregnancy by physicians such as frog test, Rabbit test. The average lasts about 280 days from the date of conception to the date of childbirth. Cystitis is an infection of the bladder. The symptoms are frequent desire to urinate, pain, and burning sensation during urination. It responds to sulfur drugs and antibiotics and fluid intake. Ectopic pregnancy results when the fertilized egg implants itself in the fallopian tube instead of the wall of the womb. Since the tube is small, it tends to burst when the embryo increases in size. Surgery is necessary to save the mother. Principles of heredity were formulated in 1865 by Georg John Mendel, an Austrian monk. He has pollinated red and white flowers of tree breeding species of a garden pea, which is self-pollinating and which he called the parental generation. Then their seeds were collected to grow the first filial generations of Fi. These were self-pollinated to produce offspring of the second filial generation or F2. After many years of experiments, Mendel concluded that the flowers of the first filial generations had both characteristics of redness and whiteness. Mendel called such individual or offspring having dual characteristic as hybrid. That something takes place by which the two characteristics, redness and whiteness, are segregated or separated. Mendel law of independent assortment about psychology of a child. Every characteristic is inherited independently of every other character. The different maternal and paternal characteristics or other genes present in the offspring of the hybrid will undergo independent assortment for the production of all combination of genes in the gametes. The result is that in each generation random combination of characters or their genes takes place. After some years, law of mutations was introduced. According to this law, some characteristics which are not present in paternal generation do appear due to chance factor that cannot be explained by Mendel law of heredity. Now we will talk about the sex determination. A curious question often arises as to how the sex of offspring is determined. Recent advances in the field of biology have made it possible to explain. Out of the 23 pairs of chromosomes, one pair is responsible for determining the sex of a child. In the female, this pair contains XX chromosomes, which are large in size. In the male, there are one large chromosome X and other small chromosomes known as Y. When mating between a male and female occurs and ovum containing X units with a sperm containing Y chromosomes, the result is a boy, XY. On the other hand, when sperm and ovum are united, each carrying X chromosomes, there is development of a female baby, XX. Now we will talk about prenatal growth. It has been already stated that life being at conception and not from the time of birth. Birth is only a point in the continuity of development. Conception occurs during mating of a male with a female, and there are particular periods when mating results in conception. In other words, around the middle of the menstrual cycle, an ovum ripens in one of the two ovaries. It then enters into a fallopian tube and marches toward the uterus. This ripening of the ovum occurs only once in every 28 days. Further, during the course of its journey to the uterus, if it unites with a sperm as a result of mating at this time of menstrual cycle, at the beginning of this union of sperms and ovum, the chromosomes line up and separate, and the process of development begins. The fertilized ovum or zygote is very small at conception, about 1/175 of an inch in diameter. The period from conception up to the time of birth is best known as prenatal period, which is again subdivided into three phases: period of ovum, embryo, and fetus. The 10 lunar months, 280 days, are marked off into these divisions. When we talk about period of ovum, the period of ovum extends from the time of fertilization up to the end of second week of life. During this period, the size of the ovum is about the size of a pinhead, and the size hardly changes because it does not receive any external nourishment. When we talk about period of embryo, the period of embryo extends from the third week to the end of second lunar month. Growth of the embryo becomes rapid. By the end of this period, the embryo has all the important external and internal features of the human being. The embryo begins to function by the end of third week. By the end of second month, the embryo is approximately 11 to 2 inches long and weight 2 grams to 2 by 3 ounce. In fact, the inner cell of the fertilized egg, which develops into an embryo, begins to differentiate into three layers from which different organs develop. If you have liked this video, then please subscribe this channel for further video in future.